Bucharest today is a city of contrasts, elegant and chaotic. A place where centuries collide, in stone, in glass, and in silence. In our last episode, we explored an underground world, carved in darkness. But not all forgotten histories lie beneath the surface. Some were buried under force, erased by will. It began with a tremor. March 4th, 1977. A powerful earthquake strikes Romania. Magnitude 7.2. Over 1,500 people are killed. Hundreds of buildings collapse. But the disaster revealed more than fragile foundations. For some, it revealed an opportunity. Earthquakes don't just shake buildings, they fracture time. In a matter of seconds, Romania was thrust from routine into ruin. For many, it felt like a punishment. For the regime, it was a blank page. While families mourned their dead, the state's attention turned to maps, measurements, and plans. The future was already being redesigned, not for healing, but for control. After visiting China and North Korea, Nicolae Ceaușescu returned obsessed with order, with symmetry, with power, expressed through architecture. He envisioned a new Bucharest, one that mirrored his will. Monumental boulevards, giant palaces, a socialist utopia, carved into the heart of the city. And so, the old city had to go. The task was given to a young architect, Anca Petrescu. At just 28, she was an unlikely choice. She wasn't famous, she wasn't connected, and she wasn't even a member of the Communist Party. But Ceausescu saw something in her, or perhaps he saw someone he could shape. She would go on to lead one of the largest construction projects in modern history, the People's House. A building so massive, only the Pentagon surpasses it in size. A symbol of ambition, control, and sacrifice. She became the face of the new Bucharest, always present on site, always presenting the vision. To some, she was a genius of discipline and drive. To others, a loyal executor of a regime's will.
A number of things were invented that simply aren't true. The fact that I worked on this project was, from the very beginning, attributed to a supposed family connection with the Ceausescu family. I want to make it very clear, I have absolutely no connection to that family. My family is from Sighișoara. There was no political involvement, and certainly no family ties. It was simply a professional competition, one that I managed to win. As for the collaboration with Ceausescu, being very young at the time, I saw it as a relationship with a beneficiary. You have to work with your beneficiary. You have to assert your own perspective, but at the same time, you have to take into account the person you're working with.
But not everyone agreed with the direction Bucharest was heading. Among the early participants in the design competition was architect Nicolae Ceaușescu. His proposals were rejected. Too modest, too respectful of the city's past. Ceausescu wanted something else, something grand, something that would outlive him. Ceaușescu would later reflect on what followed, and on those who stayed and obeyed.
She was completely obedient to everything Ceausescu asked of her. Of course, when a client, especially one with that kind of power, asks you to do something in their vision, you can't simply refuse. But professionally, you're also obligated to present alternatives, or at the very least, to shape what was requested into something professionally sound, something guided, refined, and ultimately acceptable. But she was excessively submissive. Whatever he asked for was done exactly as he wanted it.
But this was more than urban planning. It was ideological. Ceausescu, a committed atheist, saw religion as obsolete. The churches, obstacles. Sacred sites stood in the way of his new avenues. And so they fell. Ceausescu didn't just admire the cities of the East. He envied them. In Beijing, he saw obedience-made architecture. In Pyongyang, he saw power turned into geometry. He wanted the same. A city that would not challenge him, not whisper of anything older than the party. And religion was the oldest whisper of all. In his mind, faith was a relic, a threat, not just to his ideology, but to his legacy. Churches reminded people that authority could come from elsewhere, from something higher than the state. And that was unacceptable. Take St. Friday Church, for example, one of Bucharest's oldest churches, built in the 17th century. It was demolished in 1987, not because it was unsafe, but because it stood in the path of a boulevard. If stories like this speak to you, and you want to uncover what lies beneath the surface, subscribe. Help us bring more hidden histories to light. Ceausescu had to level reality. Entire neighborhoods vanished. Over 9,000 buildings erased. Among them, 20 churches. What wasn't destroyed was hidden. For most, it was over. The maps had been redrawn, the skyline rewritten. But not everyone accepted silence. There was still one fight to be had. Not with shouts, not with protests, but with calculations and with courage. Eugeniu Ceaușescu, an engineer with a vision of his own, refused to let faith be crushed by concrete. His solution? Hydraulic translation. Entire churches were lifted from their foundations and moved. Meters, sometimes hundreds. Slowly, precisely, in silence. A form of resistance, without protest. Among those saved were the Church of the Mother's Hermitage, St. Michael Church, and New St. John Church. Monuments from the 18th century, gliding through the streets of a silent city. The regime tolerated Ceausescu's method not because it respected faith, but because it was useful. The churches were moved like furniture, out of sight, out of line, out of mind. But for Ceausescu and those who watched silently behind curtains, these moves were a quiet salvation. Each meter gained was a battle won without noise, a defiance masked as engineering. Today, these churches still stand, hidden in plain sight, trapped between apartment blocks. Walk down any major boulevard, and you may miss them completely. They are the city's spiritual refugees, symbols of a past that refused to vanish. These churches are hard to notice. Their domes don't pierce the skyline. Their bells rarely ring. Surrounded by communist apartment blocks, they seem misplaced. But to those who pause, who look up, they whisper stories of weddings once held within, of candles lit in secret, of people who, even under surveillance, still believed. Maybe that's what the regime feared most. Not the stones, not the crosses, but the memory, the possibility that someone might remember. So what do we remember? What do we forget? In a city redesigned by will, what pieces of its soul are still intact? Which speaks louder today? The buildings that stand tall, or the ones that were saved in silence? History can be moved, but can it be silenced? A city can be designed. Its roads can be straightened. Its monuments aligned. But memory doesn't obey maps. It lingers in places untouched by logic, and sometimes in places they tried hardest to erase.